They're like, I don't know why I get people mad. I don't know why I get mad when people are loud, but I do. I don't know. Go fix that. go, go discover that. Sit down, relax, journal, talk it out specifically about that one thing. Do something so you can connect with another person.
Welcome to Happy to Offend You. Life guarantees that somebody's going to be offended by anything that you do. In fact, somebody right now is offended by life itself, but they don't have to be. This show guarantees that someone is going to be liberated from being offended by somebody else's offensive behavior. What? Yes, we said it. This show sets out to prove not only how to be liberated from being offended, and also how to be happy to offend. So if you're already offended, welcome to the show. And here's your host of The Very Offensive, Michelle Nedelec. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I am super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Coach Lee Hopkins. Thank you for being here.
Hey, look at me. I'm waving. Hey, thanks for
Hey.
having me, Michelle.
So welcome to Happy to Offend You, where we try to explain and discuss issues that just because you're offended by something doesn't mean you're going to die. And in fact, if you can understand why other people aren't offended by certain things, then you can actually create better connections with them and create more kind of unity and respect for other people, other cultures, other personalities, all sorts of other wonderful things that are the spice of life. So super excited to have you here. But before we get started, just give everybody kind of the highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I am Coach Lee Hopkins. I'm a social connections coach and a business culture coach to help people make more meaningful connections in their personal and professional life. And this is exactly what I do. I talk about how you can connect with other people through understanding them.
Nice. So let's back up the bus a little bit. How did you get into kind of personal connections as your thing?
Oh, because I sucked at them. I was awful. I could not make every friendship, every relationship, I've just destroyed. And I know it was me because when I reflect back on it, I know I did a lot of things. Okay, the other person, they had their own things too. But man, I was unforgiving. I was not kind. And everything that I knew was real and correct.
What?
And I had
You
no
are so
space.
sweet. How could you have possibly been?
How
No.
could I have possibly been so ruthless? If you ask anybody from my past, I'm sure they'll tell you. So like, yeah, but
My enlightening moment was like, oh, and he was jerk, and he was jerk, and he was jerk, and he was jerk, and what did they all have in common? Me.
me.
Oh, oh,
That's
okay.
exactly it. Yeah. I I realized that I went to therapy was the thing is that I'm in this. I did want something to be different. So I grew up in Ohio, and I was just terrible at making connections. I didn't know what real friendships or relationships look like. So I figured, you got to find your tribe. So it's all them. It's not me. I just need to be in the right place. So I moved to California, had the same experience. And then I moved to Chicago, where I am now, and I had the same experience. I'm like, what's going on? So, um, a girlfriend of mine had said, "Oh, you need to go to therapy. You are the problem." And I'm like, I guess. I didn't know. I know I wanted my relationship with them to be better, and I knew that I didn't have the answers. So I looked up the therapists and I looked up the ones that were free, that offered a free consultation. So there's one that offered 2 free consultations, and I went to them. And I stayed with them for 4 years and doing group therapy and stuff. And so I learned more about me and what I was doing to cause the problem. And man, I'm telling you, Michelle, it is something else when you realize how you move in the space. And I'm like, oh, if I do this, it'll cause a problem. If I don't do that, then let's see what happens. And I did a lot of exploring. Let's see what happens. And I developed an understanding of how I show up in the space and an understanding for how other people are too, like a respect for other people and how they feel about things.
Nice. So talk to me about
The
what.
girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. I was going, so how did that conversation really go about? Was it like, hey, I saw this therapist and she says you really need help? Was
it
it,
was
it's like
it
you're just
was
kind of doing your little bitch sessions, like, dude, you gotta go.
you gotta go. Yeah, because we
Yeah.
were we were doing the bitch session. We were fighting, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's just everything I do seems to be wrong. And she was like, that's because you were the problem. Like, and I shit you not, I was just like, okay, I guess I am. I was just so defeated. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I figured I'm just going to try this. I've been to therapy before. They weren't that great, but perhaps in the second largest and our third largest city in the US, I could find the therapist for me. And so I went on that
There might
journey and
be
I found
some.
them.
There might be
What's
somebody good there.
there might be somebody good.
Well, and I will empathize with you because I am not a huge fan of the whole talk therapy side of things. I have not yet been convinced of its merits. Doesn't mean to say that there isn't somebody out there that does it super well. Um,
Hmm.
but it was kind of funny that my very first experience with it was I was in a, I don't know if I'd call it an abusive relationship, but certainly toxic. It's not
Yeah.
healthy for either one of us. Um, and then and I found myself, my sister had, we went shopping and she gave me her gloves to put in the shopping cart. So I stuck them in the shopping cart. And by the end of the rounds of the store, one of the mitts had gone missing. And so I had lost the mitts and I was a terrible person. And oh my God, I can't believe I
Oh.
did this and da 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 da. And she goes, girl, whatever you got going on, you gotta get rid of that shit.
Hmm.
That is not good. No, no. So yeah, it was. And I happened to be in a fortunate situation in that we could get free coverage. Or I could get it
Oh,
at that time. And
nice.
this poor kid who's brand spanking new. And he goes, okay, so talk to me about, your childhood. And I went for an hour, bawling my eyes out. He goes, hour's up. I'm like, okay, well, see you next week.
Wow, that was intense. Poor kid. He was just like, oh my God, like I wasn't prepared for this. But
Right? I'm sure he's like 22 or so. And he's just like, oh, okay.
you felt a lot better though, right?
Oh,
Did you feel
yeah.
better after
I
that?
felt
Yeah,
better.
just letting it out, just letting it out. It's been so
Exactly.
long. Oh.
And then once I let it all out, and then I was like, okay, I got to actually deal with this. And now that I can breathe while I'm talking about it, I actually have to deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like I've been to a lot of therapists too, and they haven't been that great. I've been to one therapist that was actually just kind of really dismissive of me. And yeah, right. I know your mouth flew wide open because my eyes like, but
Dude,
I
what do you go into therapy for if you can be dismissive of your clients?
right, because I'm not a big religious person. I'm really not. Rejected religion because of how I grew up. Religion and Christianity in particular, you have to do what God says and all this stuff in the Bible. And I look around and like nobody's doing it, but they're expecting me to do it. And so I had this big chip on my shoulder about it. And I go into them and I explain to them a bit of this, and they want to pray and do stupid shit like that. And I'm like, that's really huge. I know, huge violation of their, I don't know if they take an oath, but ethics right there.
I think
Like
so.
you're supposed to be here to support me. And they wanted me to turn towards their religion because that's what they are. That's who they are. And then there's another thing about this person that struck me as interesting, and I just kind of took it because I was just so used to that. But I was in a relationship with a woman, and at that point in time, I identified as a woman. So as you hear me and see me now, I'm transgendered. I've been transitioned, but I was with a woman, and the reason why we went to therapy was because I went to therapy was because we're fighting all the time. I'm like, how can we fix this? And with his religious wagging of his finger, I probably shouldn't be together. What? Get out of here. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to get washed away, my sins washed away. I'm here to help me function as a human in society and fix my relationships, help support my relationships. So
Well, and I think
yeah.
a lot of people in that regard don't really understand kind of their own marketing messaging. And I'm sure it
Mm,
would have been fabulous for the right person. But
absolutely.
and then
But
how do you market to somebody that's dysfunctional, let's put it that way, and you're just trying to make them functional. I don't know if
mhm,
going Bible first would
would work because
persuade someone.
yeah, it hasn't And then it's,
Didn't
it's
work for
track
me.
record. Its track record of waving this Bible around hasn't really worked a lot. Like, you're gonna follow this thing, it'll fix your life. I mean, some people maybe it has, but
Well, and
shame attached to
I
it.
have a very different look on kind of, especially the New Testament and what's going on with it. To me, sin is transgression of the law, and the law is abundance and health and happiness and aptitude. And transgression of that is when we're sad, we're misplaced, we're misunderstood,
Mm,
we're just fighting the system. And I think that's one of the reasons why kind of the healings happened, is because and Jesus reportedly said, and sin no more. And it was just and transgress no more. It's like, don't go there. You don't have to go there. You don't have to, put yourself
yeah.
down. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to be guilty. Just chill out, relax, and enjoy life, and
Yeah.
see the truth for what it is. And he tried to say that in a way, and I think the Spanish Inquisition and all kind of altered some of that a little bit. So a little
Yeah,
bit
we're
got
gonna
lost in translation somewhere along the way. I think it's been translated 5 times from its original languages. So, we'll leave that one up for interpretation.
yeah, I really like that idea. I mean, I subscribe to that idea too. I think Jesus was a real person. He was going out there telling people to just live, just feel your feelings. You don't have to sit in them all the time. There's joy and there's abundance and there's everything that you could ever want here on this life, and it's all within you. And the people, I think, this is my humble opinion, but I think the people outside of him, the people in ruling, were like, no, no, no. You have to pay attention to the fear that I'm creating for you. There's no joy inside of you. Get that Jesus guy. Stop
Exactly.
him.
Right. And the
Yeah.
whole, it has to be rule led. And it's like it says multiple times, he went against the Pharisees, going, no, it's not about the rules. It's about how we treat each other. It's about humanity. That's where it's at, and you guys are missing the point here. So why people
Absolutely.
have chosen to hang on to the Old Testaments and abide, see it as rule abiding, when clearly even the translations we have say it's not about
No, it's
it's
not about the
about
rules.
humanity.
Yeah. But
So
still, as your podcast is about, we want to understand them. We might
exactly.
giggle at them for a moment. I know I will be like, aha, but for a
Oh,
minute. But if we had a straight conversation, if I had a straight conversation with someone, I would make an honest and attempt to understand that this is how they view the world.
mm-hmm.
And my connection with them, I can only connect with them. I can only share something new and interesting with them. I can only share my point of view if I demonstrate that I understand how they feel about their view. Then I could be on their level, and then we could have a conversation. So even if they say something that's wild to me, I'll do my best to understand. I'll do my best to understand. And I think the wildest thing that people have said to me is that I don't like you because you're trans. And I'm like, of course. It's hard to it takes effort and energy to when somebody's pointing at you and they're saying, I don't like you and the fact that you exist. Great. I understand that you don't like me. Tell me more about that. Because it's not my fault. I mean, you're the one with the problem. And you chose to bring it to me. I'm just gonna try and understand you.
Well, and I don't really know if people understand what trans means in order to
Hmm.
say, I don't like you because of that. They can absolutely bar none say I don't understand you because of this, understandably. Like
Absolutely.
definitely. We're both on the same page at that point. Okay. But it's a lot of people don't like me because I'm loud, because I'm Irish, because I'm aggressive, because I'm a redhead, because I'm whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, it's died. That helps you deal with it. But at the same time, I really don't care. And it's not that I don't care about them. It's that I don't care that they don't like me. It's okay. You don't have to. Nobody ever wrote in any book that you have to like me at all. And I
The
think
rules. The rules.
right. And the rules are, if you're not allowed to be loud, then nobody's allowed to be loud. Right. And then they get mad at that because they were told that they weren't allowed to be mad. And then that anger and oppression comes back every time they hear me being loud. And it's like, I
Yeah.
get it. I totally get it that you got a little bit of PTSD going on, and that's, yeah, that's totally okay. You don't have to deal with it right now.
Absolutely. And it's that understanding that you have for them to not carry that anger and frustration like they're mad at me because I'm loud or I've got red hair. Whatever is going on, you definitely understand that it's their thing. It's their thing.
Mm.
And you have empathy and understanding where it's coming from too. I think that's really awesome.
Well, I think I have more understanding, especially now. I mean, it helps to have studied it for several years. But when I can look at a situation and go, oh, okay, you feel this way because of this, and I get an understanding of it, they may not even understand that that's why
Hmm.
they're not happy with the situation. Go, no, that's not it at all. I'm just annoyed. Okay,
Okay.
that works too.
Okay.
Like,
Excuse me. I think that that is a real big difficulty in connecting with people is the fact that they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They don't know what the frustration is. And if you can identify it for them and you try to share it with them, they're just going to reject it even more. It's like, how dare you know more about me than I know about me? Like, don't ever do that. And you're just trying to connect with them. You're trying to understand them. So I really think it's important if we wanted to see other people's point of view that we really have to understand ourselves because you talked about the PTSD and somebody's upset because they weren't able to yell when they were kids and now they see you doing it so they're mad and that anger surfaces. They don't know that's happening. They don't know that's
right.
happening and they're treating you in a way that you don't desire and they probably don't desire if they just figure themselves out. They're like, I don't know why I get people mad. I don't know why I get mad when people are loud, but I do. I don't know. Go fix that. Go discover that. Sit down, relax, journal, talk it out specifically about that one thing. Do something so you can connect with another person.
So you did this all the time. So what can people do who are in that situation? Because I know a lot of people come from families like mine that are slightly what we love to call dysfunctional, and it's everybody's
Just slightly,
pushing
yeah,
everybody's triggers, and we get
yeah.
into what I like to call an argument elevator. So somebody pushes somebody's button, they get elevated, and then they
Mm.
push back, and that person gets elevated, and they push back, and before you know it, you're on the 26th floor, and nobody knows how you got there. so,
I
so
love
you,
that.
you surround yourself with about 5 of those. You're like, oh my
And we're
god,
just going off the
right?
shooting off all the time. I love
Exactly.
this
So
elevator analogy. Go ahead. I'm
right,
sorry.
that's all good. So how in your experience does somebody kind of deal with that if it's going on, or is there a better time to deal with that?
Well, I definitely appreciate the question. And I like to start with, of course, the individual and what your experience. I think it all starts with your emotional awareness and your understanding of how you feel about things. I like to use this device that points out those three things about the situation. So if you can identify the triggering event, so number one is the event. So what happened? Quickly, concisely. Don't tell me entire story about who did this and who did that and why you no, just they put the coffee cup on the table. Boom. That's the event. I felt what? Angry, I guess. Angry, sad. I like to use the four, like the big four, the ones that people can readily identify is joyful, sadness, fear, and anger. And pick one of those. Just put one of those to it. So you're feeling something. You know, if you don't know how to express it or what the word is for it, pick one of those and see if it fits. And then the third piece to it is now that we know the event, we know how we feel about the event. This is the self discovery of why. Why do we feel that way? And so, if we don't readily know it, we need to stop talking and figure that out. If you're in a conversation and you realize that, oh, we're getting elevated, you need to go figure that out. And I'll tell you, this is how it worked for me. A true story about me and the partner that said you need to go to therapy. I went to therapy and I started to learn this. And we kept fighting, and I asked my therapist, "How do I stop us from fighting? I just don't know how to stop us." And they were like, "Just, you know, find out why you're upset. Just find out why you're upset. And so here we go. We're in a conversation and it escalates. We're on that elevator ride and they say something. It's so familiar. We say something and I get mad and then I shoot back at them and they say something and I get mad. And I'm like, why did we start fighting in the first place? I don't even know. I swear the entire conversation just kind of toned down. Her voice drowned out. And I was so focused on trying to figure out why I was mad that I just couldn't participate anymore. I just couldn't. And so I ended up leaving instead of going on that elevator ride all the way up to the top. I ended up just leaving. And of course we talked more when I came back, but I was like, wow, this is it. So it took me I think a couple of years to figure out why I was mad. Honestly, because I was so reactive. I would just and I'll tell you why it was mad. It's because um she made fun of my cooking, or I thought she made fun of my cooking. I kind of just she asked me if I was going to put more seasoning on something, and I was like, I thought she was making fun of me. Roar. And that started because something happened when I was a kid, and I was always criticized for things. It had nothing to really do with her, but a trigger that I didn't even notice.
Yeah. And in most instances, it never has anything to do with what's going on. And one of the
Hmm.
things I like to say is if your emotional state is outperforming the reality of the situation, it has nothing to do with what's going on right now. So if somebody, says, "Hey, do you want the paprika or whatever?" And
Yeah.
you're like, "What the So,
That's kind of how
odds
it went.
are not what's going on right here, right now. It's got something
Hmm.
to do with way back when. And sometimes way back when can be immediately, and sometimes it can be, in utero. That is probably one of the weirdest things that I get is when people go back in utero and they don't
Mm,
understand if somebody says, I've always felt like this, or I don't ever remember a time that I didn't feel like this. I'll go back and go, okay, so what was going on when your mom was pregnant with you? Might she have felt this way on a regular basis? And they're like, oh, yeah, my mom always felt this way. And they don't realize that when we're developing, that we're floating in mom's emotions. We're literally
mhm,
swimming in an ocean of emotion, and it's all mom's. And we have no choice but to go, oh, when this happens, I feel this way.
mhm.
Because that's what happens. When the dog barks, I feel this way. And
Absolutely.
and you can't not feel that way when you're in utero. And a lot of people go, well, like, I don't get how you could feel that way. And I'm like, because you do. Like, I don't know. I can't explain consciousness and the realms of existence to you. But what I do know for a fact is that for sure we float in mom's emotions. We feel that way. So if something isn't always or forever, and you're not able to get
Mhm,
to the kind of the root of it, it is simply like looking back at mom going, oh, okay, yeah, I totally get it. She would have been absolutely terrified on a regular basis. I get it. She would have absolutely freaked out when the dog barked or whatever the case might have been. And to be able to see things from that perspective, because if you're freaking out because the neighbor's dog barks all the time, and you're always shocked and go, oh my God. And then it's like, okay, I'm getting sick and tired of being in a state of anxiety. Would you shut your dog up?
yeah,
It's not the dog's fault. It's like,
right.
dog's just
It's
being a dog. That's it. Nothing more.
absolutely. There's definitely something going on, and it's really important. Like this is like I'm gonna say kind of new research where we're going back to genetics, new as in maybe the last 10, 20 years. We're going back and saying
Yeah.
that this is something that has been passed down. Like these traumas and things get passed down to us, and we get to hooray, experience them. But it is
Yay.
yeah, we get to deal with it.
Lucky
And
us. But when it is too, because you hope that you understand life more than, like, when we look at our parents, we're going, oh man, I'm so much more awake than they are. It's like, oh, oh,
Mhm.
are you? Are you really? Um, talking about myself, not about anybody else. Um, but to be able to understand if I am in that higher state of awareness or whatever you want to call it, then it really is up to me to be able to look at that and deal with it in a different way than my parents could, who are going to deal with it in a different way than their parents could, and so on and so forth, so that we
Absolutely.
can potentially kind of stop the saga.
Yeah, that's why my company's called Patterns of Possibility because of that, looking back at those past patterns. And I found that it's the people before us, they don't want to talk about stuff. They just my in my experience is that I'm trying to understand what your life was like. What were you feeling when you were pregnant? I don't know. I was just trying to survive. Okay. Okay, I get it. Okay. Now I can't get any real more detail to know what happened when the dog barked. It was just part of the whole thing. It was all the feeling. And so trying to figure that out. But they have done I think that they've done a lot of work, or my parents at the very least have done the best they could. And I always appreciate that they do the best they can with what they have, especially when I start to know more of their stories. When I start to know more people's stories, I can empathize. I'm like, wow, if I were you and I grew up exactly how you did and I had the same experiences, I would have done the same thing. I get it. I get it. And I understand why we had dysfunctional relationships. Of course, you were just trying to survive. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on that I don't have to face today. I'm glad and I appreciate that. I like to know more about your story. Parents, tell me more about what your experiences were. And it has just been really eye opening.
Nice. I love it. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why we should have more conversations with our parents and or elders in order to be able to understand what was going on. Because I think for a lot of people, they think that life in the surrounding situation was exactly the same when, their parents grew up. And it's like, no, no,
Mm-mm,
no, it wasn't. Nope, nope,
mm-mm.
that's not how that went down at all.
Definitely not. They had different challenges in different ways, different challenges and stuff. And to your point, also, I'm a big fan of talking to the people before me, the generations, and see what they've gone through. But they're gonna say some stuff to us.
Right?
They're gonna say some stuff to us,
They're
and
going
we
to
gotta
say
hold
some
it together.
stuff
We
and
gotta
it's going to
hold
be
it together.
offensive.
Yes, we gotta hold it together. We have to demonstrate that it's safe for them to open up to us. This is
Right.
my own personal philosophy. It's like, oh, you're gonna say some ridiculous, backward, racist, maybe all kinds of stuff, but
Probably.
it's how you grew up and it was your experiences. And I want to hear about that. I want to make it safe for you. So if I'm reacting to that, I gotta calm that down. Like, whew, I want to hear about whatever it is that you experienced. And my mom, because trans people, she didn't know what trans people were. And
Right.
I remember she had talked about how she had bad experiences with women because I guess she'd been assaulted, something along those lines. And she didn't look at lesbians in favorable light. Right. And so like all the queerness of the community was just like, oh. And so when I came out as lesbian, she was like, no, no. But I
She'd
didn't
rather
know.
you were a biker.
She'd rather I was something else.
Tell me you murdered somebody, anything, just not that.
just anything else. But she had her
Aw.
own traumas. She had her own traumas associated with it.
Right.
That's the thing. And so allowing her space for that. And she was like, also, I thought you were going to go to hell. So I just wanted you to be safe because of all the religion and stuff like that. But understanding how she felt about those experiences and not reacting to it, not being like, oh, that's bullshit, mom. Not doing that and allow her to be and able to speak her truth has really helped us grow our relationship. So if we're going to talk to the people who are before us, they're going to say some stuff that's going to make us react. They are.
Yeah. And it really is important to, one, if you're going to embrace those, just, bite your tongue, do what you got to do,
Do it.
take a
Do what
recording,
you
go through it again later, do what you got to do on that one. Cause I think it really is important to be able to allow them to talk, and to get that understanding. Cause otherwise, if they're not safe, they're still they're in that state of shock, in the
Mhm.
state of, whether it's fear or shame or whatever it was for her of whatever had happened, right? All you're doing is bringing up the shame and embarrassment. And it's really easy
Yeah.
for you to think, or her to think, that it's because of this conversation right here, right now, that I feel shame. And it's
Mhm.
not. It's just reminding her of the feelings of shame from before. So, I mean, you can see how quickly that can
Hmm.
escalate and kind of
Yeah, and they can
affect the
close
mood.
up, and they'll close up and they won't say stuff anymore.
Right.
They won't say stuff. And I think the mysteries of who you are and perhaps your reactions to things come from where your parents came from. Whatever it is that they've learned, they just definitely pass it on, whether they mean to or not. I think there's a book where you mean to or not, your parents fuck you up. Something along that lines of the title.
I totally looked that one up. That's an
Yeah.
awesome title. So I have to ask, are you still with your girlfriend?
Oh, sorry. Okay, no, she actually, I was so needy and dependent that she broke up with me. Even after
Oh,
all that stuff, she broke up with me, and I was the one who was just like, I do all the things, look at me. I was like,
oh,
yeah, I was so pitiful, and this is me judging myself, so fine,
oh,
whatever. But
no.
she broke up with me, and it was for good. I spent a lot of time, I spent several months being like, I just wish you would take me back. And then I'd been single for several years because I realized I needed to do stuff. I really need to work on myself and understand what it was that I was really looking for in a relationship. And it turned out that I started to enjoy spending time alone and learning more about me. I started to realize that. And then now, oh man, trying to get into relationships, there's this idea of being trans also. I want to be accepted for my body. I don't want to be fetishized and all that stuff. But also the independence of liking myself and these standards. Like, I want to be able to tell my partner about themselves and have them hear it in a nice, clear manner. And I'm not saying that I want to cuss them out. I want to point out all the bad things that they do, but I look back on my relationships and my connections with people, and I can't even tell them about the joy that they bring me. Like, I'm so happy that you did this thing, or thank you so much, or give them a compliment because they just be like, no, no, it wasn't a big deal. But this is my view of you. This is how I see you. And if you can't take my joy, if you can't take my expression of joy for you, then oof, really, when it comes to anger, sadness, and fear, there's no room for it. And I've just found that in my journey, there's a lot of people who just can't hear how people experience them. And
Wow.
being close to people who can't hear how I experience them, whether it's in a way that they desire or undesire, it's hard. Like, where are you people out there who understand yourselves and will take an honest look at it?
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, and I find it, to me, it's sad that people can't take the compliment
Yeah.
because they're thinking that I need to judge you so badly that anything you say can't be heard. That it's a really harsh way to look at all reality, because you got to understand they're turning away all of the good aspects that they've been
Yes.
told are wrong or bad. And
Hmm.
that it can be anything from butterflies to to people. Like, it's like, that's just harsh.
Yeah, and
Aw.
they're so hard on themselves. They can't take the compliment. And I know what that that feels like, to not be able, and it's like I did the work. I did the work. And to be in a relationship with someone who hasn't done the work and is going to rely on me constantly. That's just the way it happens. If they haven't done the work, then one other person kind of picks up the slack and does a bit of teaching, but I don't want to do that. I do it for my coaching business. You're a client.
Right.
You're a client essentially. So I don't want to do that. I want to be with somebody who's also going to be there to help me grow as well. Because I can hear how people experience me and I can appreciate how people experience me, whether it's in a way I desire or it's in a way I don't desire. I get to learn something, I get to experience their point of view. And I'm looking for somebody who gets that, who gets
Right.
that. Yeah.
Well, and I don't think it's really that different than any other aspect of a relationship, really. I mean, I know it is, in especially in the way you're
Yeah.
experiencing it, but I think everybody goes through some extent of that, of not being accepted for the things that they're doing in the relationship. It's like somehow, somewhere, we got this idea that as soon as we get together, oh, life is sunshine and butterflies, and you
Oh.
complete me, and we will always be happy forever together. It's like, oh, gag, make me throw up. That is so not reality. That is, no, that's not the way this goes down at all. And I happen to be with an engineer, which I love to tease him about being an engineer. He hates it. But at the same time, it's, to me, it's also a sign of respect. This guy's brilliant, absolutely bar none brilliant. But every time he screws up at math or something, it's like, hey, good thing you're in engineering. Just those little digs, and it's like, oh, come on. We're in this because you can handle that. If you can't handle
Mhm.
digs, you're not going to be able to handle me. Trust me, because it's going to get a lot worse than that. And it's like, yeah, I know. And so it's those little aspects of life that we are who we are, and we can't,
Right.
one, we can't help it. Two, I'm not going to change. He's not going to become an artist overnight and go, hey, let's run through the field and eat granola. That is never going to happen in this relationship. And one, I would never want him to,
I
because I'm
was
going,
gonna
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say you like it the way it is.
Right?
And it's really cool that you can experience each other that way. Like you can share, you can dig at it, and you can both laugh at it because that's what you want in your relationship. And to be able to know that, I think there's really something that connects people. That's why I was started when you said that, I was like smiling so big. It's like you guys, you just play with each other so much.
Right? It's, I think you have to, if you want a long-term relationship with somebody. If you're expecting it to be all golden and delicious, you're never going to get to the depth of an understanding of who that person really is, and you're never going to get them. And if you can't get them, nobody's ever going to be able to get you.
Right. Right on. You're gonna be miserable in your relationship. I mean, that has been the bane of all my relationships is I've been told when we get together, you're gonna be completed and I'm gonna give up everything. This is what my pattern of behavior is like to give up everything that I think and feel so that I can make sure that they're happy because that's my ultimate goal. And then I step back and I realize that, oh, I have thoughts and feelings. I need
Right.
to go deal with those and learn about more about what those are. And then I can connect with someone else because if I don't get myself, they're never going to get me.
Right. Well, and
Mm.
I think it's a hard lesson to learn, especially at the end of the honeymoon phase, because everything is bubblegum and ice cream for a while, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what the hell did you put in my ice cream? Like, oh, this is where we're going with that. And one of my ex-clients put it, she goes, I've never got as along with my husband as well as I did when I gave up my expectations of where the relationship. We lost,
Mm.
both gave up expectations. I said, that's great, that's awesome. That's not the answer she was looking for. I said, well, it is, because you both got these expectations of, and then his angel wings will pop up and he will answer me and he will do these things. It's like, no, he's not going to. Funny thing happened. We were at funny, peculiar, at the hospital yesterday. My mom was is in the hospital, and my dad did not go and visit her at 4 o'clock. We went and picked him up and took him, and we showed up at about 5:36. So in the meanwhile, she was losing her mind. She's 91. And for whatever reason, she thought he had died because he didn't show up on time.
Wow.
And she is bawling. And the nurse is like, it's only been like 20 minutes, I'm sure. Right? She's not kind of understand this whole thing going, you can cry and that's fine. And I'm sure he's fine, just so you know. So we get there. Mom's giving this sad story. I thought you were dead. And he goes, I think you need to work on that. Dad, I think what she really wants is a hug right now. Would you like to give her a hug? He goes, I can give you a hug. Okay. Like,
Oh my goodness.
the sympathy was like zero.
It's like, yeah, it's your problem.
They've only been married for 75 years or whatever. It's like, oh, that was sweet.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
she was really wanting this adorable moment. He was not giving it to her for the life of him. And he's like, I love you. Like, that has not
Yeah,
changed,
look
and
how
it's not
torn
going
up
to.
I am about you. Show it back to me.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
that's so
That
cute. Cute in a weird way, but I was like, oh, it was paramount to me at that point that even though they've been together for 75 years, she still has kind of the stuff going on of I want the comfort, I want the
Oh.
conviction, I want the reassurance. And it's like, well, I don't know how much more reassuring I can be other than 75 years of giving you everything.
Good point. Good point. Like, what else can I do here? I'm
Yeah.
I'm here all the time for
Okay,
you.
I'm here.
Like,
So yeah,
I was gonna say, wow, your parents have been married for longer than many people live. That's
right.
like that is remarkable.
Nice. Yeah, they are very cute and very dysfunctional, very codependent, clearly on my mom's side.
Mm,
But it works for them. It was a
yeah,
time when
absolutely.
then that's what you did, and you stuck it out. And dad ends up we come home and dad goes, I'm not really sure about your mom's mental health, and can you talk to her? It's like, oh, so cute. Yeah, I'll go talk to her.
Wow. So you were like, yeah, I'll go talk to her.
Not gonna do
Wow.
anything, but yeah, sure, I'll go talk to her.
He loves you so much. He's been with you for a long time, and pretty
Yeah,
much it.
right. Well, she is a little universal in her. There's a book that I read once upon a time on um happiness, something happiness. And basically the research was there's four different ways that you can look at a problem. One is that it's a local problem, or that it's a universal problem, or that it's a local um happens happiness issue, if you will, or optimistic way of looking at it, or it's a universal optimistic way of looking at it. And the way that people tend to look at things tends to describe their overall happiness in life in general. And she tends to be a universal pessimist. So
Mm.
it's like, he was 15
Oh, I
minutes late for
see.
his meeting, therefore he died.
He
It's like,
died,
it was
which
it
is
was a
wow.
universal, your dad died, your brother died, Armageddon happened because they're 15 minutes late. It's like, no, it's probably not it. It's probably a little more local. Could have been a train, could have been anything at that point.
Wow, that is just I don't know what to say.
Mind boggling.
Yeah.
So talk to me about how when you've in this transition of life, kind of coming to the understanding of people and communication and connections, um, have you come to a point where you see that people are offended by the things that you do, whatever that might be, whether it might be being a coach, it might be living in Chicago, it could be anything, and you're just like, yeah, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, and I kind of like living in Chicago, and I'm good with that, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. My mindset now, thanks to TikTok, I used to go on TikTok live and people would come in, they would say the worst stuff. And um I'd learned that, all right, I've been more curious about them and why they say the thing. And my curiosity of why they say what it is they do has allowed me to kind of tone down my intense feelings, or if I had intense feelings about it, tone them down and be more curious about what's going on with them. And then after, this curiosity had passed, I recognized that they are sharing their experience with me, and I've adopted this mindset to believe it to be a gift, whether it is an experience that they desire or I desire or I don't desire. Their expression of who they are is a gift to me. And to think about this in
Mhm.
it's a really self-centered way to think about it, but it works for me.
I like
They
it,
could have been
actually.
anywhere in the world, could have been anywhere in the universe. They could express this to anybody, but somehow my vibe had attracted them to come to me.
Oh,
And
I like that.
and I
That's
think that
adorable.
thank you. I
I
think
like
that the last piece of it is that, well, I must be quite a powerful being to have people come and trying to see me because I exist. And
right.
so my vibration just brings people to me to share their experience with me. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I must be awesome. That's I turn it all the way around. I turn it all the way around.
Absolutely, it does. And I heard a speaker once say that you're not visible enough and you're not kind of expressing your point of view well enough if people aren't trying to shoot it down.
Yeah, I
And you
love
can
that.
take it as an insult, you can take it as or you can take it as a compliment that, hey, you're actually getting there. You're on point now because they can attack it.
Yeah,
It's a weird way of looking at it, but but it's true. And one of the ways that I explain this to people was if somebody says to me, um, that's not a really flattering shirt, you probably shouldn't wear that. It's a nice way of saying that's a really ugly shirt. I don't want to see you in that. So if somebody
yeah,
says it's a really ugly shirt, like you don't want to wear that in public, it's not an insult to me and or the shirt. It's a compliment to me because they're trying to keep me safe. So once
mm,
upon a time, they were told that that particular shirt, whatever it might have been, isn't the thing that you wear in order to get the respect, the love, the whatever it is that they were going for.
right.
And all they're trying to do is protect me from it. So if somebody comes out and they just blurt out things, they're just not saying it in a nice way that people have been taught to say, you know,
Yeah,
things that are
see,
rude. And that
mm-hmm.
rudeness really is them trying to protect you in a weird sort
Yeah.
of way.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, if I could just take it and apply it all the way back to my mom and how she was like, "Don't be gay," when she's trying to save me from whatever her experiences, whatever she was taught, and so creating that space, and people do that all the time to each other. It's like, I don't think this is flattering. I'm trying to protect you from this and that because based on my life experiences and what I've learned, that it can be harmful. So I'm trying to help, and it's up to us that I think to be able to receive that and kind of dissect it and talk about it.
No, absolutely. I love it. So
Mm.
when you're working with your clients, what are some of the things that they're um kind of what are some of the more typical kind of universal things that they're working on that they see as a problem? Is that a
Oh,
clear question?
I think we talked about it just now, where when people say things to them, they take offense and they can't see the other person's point of view. And it all equates to it all comes back to you understanding what it is about yourself that is causing your reaction to it. Because somebody can come up to you and say the shirt that you're wearing is not flattering and to take it off. And you could be really upset about that, or you can perhaps be curious why you're so upset about that because you have the power to wear the shirt and just go out and wear the shirt without them without their thoughts. You can just leave the thoughts right there. Thank you, but no thanks. I'm just going to wear the shirt. But most of my clients are really offended or upset or afraid or feel completely rejected, like it's a personal attack against them. And
Mm,
so most of my clients and I, we work through that piece where they feel it's a personal attack and they can't be themselves. That shirt is you. That shirt is what you like. It's an expression of yourself, and you feel like you can't be yourself. Let's work on that and be more comfortable with who you are, so you can attract people who will treat you the way you want to.
nice. Love it. Because yes, I assured them that I hadn't considered that when I bought the shirt.
Exactly, right?
And I still don't care. Don't go to my shirt. And it's all good. Awesome. I love it. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. So how do they start their journey with you?
Well, you can find me at patternsofpossibility.com. I have a group as well. So I have a community. You can come join us. We talk about meaningful connections. We create meaningful connections. We demonstrate. We have weekly events where we hang out with each other. We talk about our friendship challenges and our personal and professional challenges. It's all about building community full of trust. So you can find me at patternsofpossibility.com and check out my community as well.
I love it. Awesome. So when they at let me ask you this. At
Yeah.
what point in life did you know that you weren't going to die because somebody offended you?
Oh my God. Oh, well, I would say
Yesterday.
offended, reject. I was like, oh, I'm here. So I had been looking for my entire life for real connection and community, right? And after I transitioned from female to male, I thought that I was going to make it, and I needed to start talking about me being transgendered. So while I was in therapy, I had developed this positive mindset, and I went to this club. It was actually a comedy place, so it was a comedy show. I went there with the mindset I'm gonna meet somebody new. We're gonna have a great conversation. And sure enough, Michelle, I did. I met somebody new. We started to have a great conversation, and I thought I need to tell the truth of who I am. Back in my head, it was like you need to tell the truth. You tell them that you're trans because it's important to create that connection, to be honest. And so we're talking, and I lead the conversation towards LGBTQ stuff, queer stuff. And he said, I've never seen a trans person before. And I don't know why they did this. I don't know why they do this, but I don't have a problem with it. And I thought, great, I'm going to reveal myself. So I tell them I'm trans, and their face just changes and they just stop talking and they just walk away from me. Nothing else. They left the entire venue, gone. This was a couple of years ago. And I realized that, I mean, I was devastated at the time. It took some time to recover. But I always go back to the experience and realize that I didn't die. I am not going to die if people don't like me. And
Aw. Yeah.
right?
And like, well, and it does bring up a great point because I mean, I think if it was anything else, like, I don't know, I had heart surgery. I don't think that that's something that I need to reveal to somebody in order to create a connection. But I totally get that with the amount of stigma that's on things right now, that it's like, hey, I'm hiding this thing because when you find out, you're going to freak out.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
well,
And
I
I've
guess you
read,
could almost relate it to kind of mental health once upon a time in the 80s, even. If somebody
yeah.
had mental health issues, it was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that shit's contagious. I gotta go. And I was like, no, no, it's
Yeah.
not.
It's it
No.
I learned that I just
Oh,
really needed to be more discerning about who I share my truth with, like the deep down stuff with. I
yeah.
do like when people self identify with me or self disqualify. They're like, "Oh, Lee's not going to be my friend because I don't like that the fact that they're trans." No, yeah, just stay away. Is stay back because I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather rather than develop a friendship or the connection with you and then have it change or fall apart, or you attack me because and you felt like I hid something from you. No, I just didn't think it was important. Stuff like that. I
Dude,
just
I'm not
wanted to avoid
attracted to
that.
you. I'm sorry. I didn't think my sexual orientation was important in the situation.
All of that, right? Get out of here.
I wonder if that's why deep down they're really offended. It's like, hmm,
hmm
things that make you
hmm
go, hmm.
mm.
And if nothing else, you can just take it that way from now on. Go, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want you. I'm
They thought I
sorry.
was hot. Sorry. Wanted me. Yeah, that's funny. Aw.
Mm.
Yeah,
But I did recover. I did recover. So
good. I'm glad to hear that. And I do appreciate that it is a lot harder and um well, and that there is so much stigmatism right now that could potentially be life threatening in certain situations. And it
yeah,
is for a lot of people, which is
absolutely.
very sad. Um, and and I can't wait until society kind of gives their head a shake and goes like, if it doesn't affect me, I don't give a shit. like
Yeah.
like everything else in life. Um,
When?
right.
When will we get to that point? I hope that we get to
It's
that
really
sometime.
sad to state of affair to say. I can't wait until people are apathetic.
Yeah, like be
Yay!
more apathetic. Stop giving shits about stuff.
But it's so true. It's like it's got nothing to do with you. Why do you care? Like, why would you
Hmm,
care if somebody had a heart surgery? What do you care if like it's not going to impede their life in any way, shape, or form? They just get to make a connection, meet some awesome people, and life is good.
absolutely.
Wow. There's still hope for us. There are still lovely people out there that want to get to know each other and connect and learn to accept themselves. Because I think the really big thing is when people accept themselves, then they realize it's so much easier to accept other people. Because as they say, learn to tend to your own garden, and you'll be so busy you'll never have time to lean over the fence and complain about somebody else's weeds.
Oh, I love that analogy. Yeah, heck yeah. Tend to your own garden. Enjoy it. There's lots of great things growing there.
Nice. Lee, you have been absolutely awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
I just want to thank you so much for this lovely banter, just back and forth and letting you
Letting me
ask me
vent.
questions. They're letting you vent. Yeah.
Nice.
I meant letting me talk about my experiences. I appreciate that having being able to, I think these kind of conversations really help people think in a different light. So I'm really grateful to be a part of that and help people like see a different point of view.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it immensely. Peeps, thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends. We love being happy to offend you. So let's do it again next week.